Today's topic is for the kitchen series, part 1, making platters. So for today, to start with, I'm going to use this behemoth. This is actually a piece of California monkey pod. I found out recently that it grows here. I did not know that, but it's a really pretty nice. It'll look a lot nicer once I get it going. The grain will open up and it'll show really nice. And I'm going to color the rim on this one. So to get started, I'm going to switch cameras here so we got a good view. I'm going to first show you guys how I find the center of a big piece like this. So I can drill a hole. I've already got it marked, but this is from when I cut it on the bandsaw. But I always like to do this just to be sure that I've got the center. Because sometimes when you're cutting on a bandsaw, it could go out a little bit. So we just want to make sure that we're on center. So what I like to do is take a pair of calipers, has a pencil in there, a compass. And I'm not going to quite open it up all the way to the center here. Almost where I feel center might be. I'm going to tighten it down. And I'm just going to put the sharp point right on the edge here. And I'm just going to draw an arc, just like that. And I'm going to flip it all the way around. Line that up as well as I can there to create a second arc. I think you guys probably already know where I'm going with this, some of you. Another arc. Oh, turn it one more way there. And right on the edge there. And we got an arc. Now I want to just grab me a ruler here. And I'm going to draw an X right down the center here. X marks the spot. So you want to go crossways with it. I'll tell you, this has saved me so much trouble trying to find the center of bowls. When I've had a friend of mine show me this, I was like, how simple is this, right? I must be pretty well centered because the pencil went right across that. A little hole there, so there we go. So that's where we would drill a hole. A short hole, because I am going to because of the size of this, I'm going to put a faceplate on it. I do not want to use like a screw center that goes in a chuck or anything, because with this size, it can easily strip out while you're turning it. Especially wood like this, since it's a relatively hard softwood, so it's not a hardwood, so the threads would have a tendency more to strip out. So I'm just going to grab me a drill bit here. It's going to match my little jig here that I made. This little guy right here goes right into that little hole there. So, and this is the same diameter as the inside of my faceplate where the threads are. So if I drill a small hole here for this plug to go into, I can line the faceplate up right on the middle. Right. I need to find me a drill bit that's going to be the same size. And we're just going to already have a little hole there, so I don't need to use an awl to create a hole. But if there wasn't a hole there, I'd create an awl. I'd take an awl and tap it in a little bit to create a hole to guide the drill bit. It's still going to work. There we go. That's deep enough. Now I'll just sit in there just like that. And I'm going to grab my faceplate, which is right here. And I'm just going to slide this right over that little jig I created there. Make sure it's still in the hole. Grab me my screw bits here. I'm using 1 1/4 inch. That's about the depth I need for it, for this size of a piece. I don't want really long ones because you can't accidentally leave holes, screw holes, when you're turning. So you don't want to go really deep with the screws. Just shy of half the depth of the thickness of the piece is pretty much what I go for. Here we go. This shouldn't take very long to drill these in. All right, we've got this on here. Yay! And let's just screw this onto the headstock, because I do want to true up the face of the edge of this first, where the rim's going to be. We need to get this as close and situated as we can. This is the hard part of having a very large piece on your lathe. So I'm just going to bring my tool in this way and treat it like a bowl, and just do some push cuts towards the headstock here, but the tool is at 45 degrees. I'm just going to do half of this, and then I'll be able to adjust the tool rest, swing it around a little bit more, take the rest of it off. One more pass here, and then I'll be able to swing the tool rest around a little bit better. All right. And with a piece this size, I do not want to try to adjust the tool rest with the piece running. And it does take it a minute to slow down just because of the force of the piece spinning. So I can swing that just a little bit better. Almost. Getting there. Same thing, 45 degrees. Don't want to take too big of a cut, just work your way down. So it's a little bit more out around right in this spot, so I'm taking lighter cuts to feel the tool jumping a little bit more than it should. And I am using my bevel to steer the cut. Wherever I'm aiming that bevel is where it's going to go. So you want to have this bevel like parallel as much as you can toward the bedways. If you kind of twist it out like this, you're going to lose the cut. And if you push in too much, then it's going to go in deeper and take too big of a cut. And now I can just take one long pass all the way across. Oh, there's a kind of a high spot right here towards the edge. So I'm just going to kind of peel that away, get rid of that. And try to do this kind of a cut that's kind of more even here along the front. Get the piece a little more balanced that way. So it's kind of rough looking, but it's straight across. We're going to true that up in a little bit. I'm going to grab me a bigger hole gouge, my 5/8, and we're going to true up the face of this. This is going to be the bottom of our piece. We need to get everything evened up. It's rubbing just a little bit. I can hear it. Let's see if we can turn it up a little bit more. Not quite that fast. There we go. It's going to make the cutting a little easier. So I got my tool almost closed on the flute. You do not want it completely closed, or you're going to hit this. It's going to cause you it's going to hit the top bevel here, and it's going to cause you a major catch. So you want to leave it partway open. And I'm just doing push cuts towards the headstock. didn't realize this piece had moved this much since I cut it. And I laid my ruler across it. It was pretty almost flat. So it seems to be a lot flatter towards the center here. A bit more out of. So the fastest way to remove the wood is just to do these push cuts. So we almost got it straight. We'll see one more cut here. Okay, so I'm just doing cleanup cuts now. Then we'll start shaping the bottom. Okay, it's still a little bit rough right here, so I'm going to use some more push cuts here. Sounds like everybody's joining back in. Almost everybody, anyway. I hope they all, those that popped out before we fixed it will come back in. Woo. Man, it was kind of hard right through here. A little bit lighter cuts here, so it is kind of feels like there's a hard part of the. Hopefully, it's not a knot in the center. I'm gonna stop the lathe here in a second, and have a look. One draw, cut back, just to make sure it's smooth here. It's a pull cut, using my body to lean back with the cut instead of my arms. You get a much straighter cut when you do that. Looks like everybody's coming back in. You can hear my little doorbell ringing there, letting me know. All right, so let's see where we're at here. I just want to check the wood because it felt like there was a hard section. It's this area right in here. You can see that tear out I'm looking at. Let's see here. Let me show you guys. There's a bunch of tear out right here. Get a better view of that, if you guys can see that. So it's really pretty wood, but there's a lot of like sap or wood along here, and then it's got like heartwood right through the center. So that's why it was kind of jumping around a little bit. So I'm just going to bring my tool rest in a little bit closer and kind of get rid of more of this nub real quick. And then we can get the shaping, putting the Ogee on the bottom of this piece. Seems like that hardwood is going right through the center where my tailstock is. That's why it's jumping more towards the center than there. That's better. You can tell this by the sound of the cut. It smooths out as I get further out. So. There we go. Yeah, it's almost right through the center. So when I come around, right in this area, it's like smooth, and then it hits, and it's like makes the tool bounce. And it's causing some tear out, but all this is going to go away anyway, so. All right, so what I want to do now is I'm going to just start taking like a third of the piece down. So we got 17. But I did take some of this off, probably a good inch, so I'm probably at 16 now. So we're at 8, but we want to take a third of that. 2, 4, 6, 8. So we want to do, I'm going to go about 2 1/4. And I'm just going to start making a groove out towards the rim here. So I'm just going to mark that just to keep an eye on where I'm going with it. Because we're going to create an Ogee curve on the bottom, the platter. I'm just going to bring out my tool rest a little bit more so I got the support of the post down here right underneath the tool. Yeah, I'm going to turn down the lathe and bring it back up to speed. We got rid of a lot of that vibration. It's still kind of out on the front, but we'll take care of that when we turn the piece over. So I'm just going to start right here on the corner, do some push cuts here. And I'm going to work towards, from the inside towards the outside here. And right now it's cutting pretty well. I'm getting pretty large shavings all over me, as you guys can see. And I'm going to go to the overhead so you guys can see that shape taking place right there. So now that we got the picture fixed, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on that so you guys can see what I'm doing. There we go. And you can see that shape developing right there. I've got the tool open at almost 45 degrees. It's a little more closed than that, but I can tell my tool is starting to get a little dull, so I'm going to have to run over to the sharpener, the grinder real quick. Get a couple more cuts out of it first. All right, so I'm going to run over to the grinder. This should work a little bit faster. Much better. You can see.
Or is there are you dishing it out?
I'm dishing it out. There we go. Now you can see the shape I'm making right here. And this is just rough right now. We're going to clean it up in just a second. And because it's kind of, my tool's overhanging a little bit, I need to adjust my tool rest. So I heard it squeaking a little bit, so we want to put it more on an angle. There we go. And I'm almost to the line there. And let's see if you can see that curve there for you guys. So it needs a little bit of work right here. I can see it. Kind of not much of a curve here, it's more flat. So I just want to do a couple of clean up back and forth curves here, some pull cuts here, just kind of get rid of that flat. Let's see, get that. So this area down here is what you guys are seeing. It doesn't look like there's a curve there, but on where I'm looking at it does. It's just the angle of the camera kind of throwing it off a little bit. Like right here, it kind of looks like it dives in. So we're gonna kind of straighten that out a little bit. So what I'm looking at is there's just a slight bump right here. So I'm looking at the horizon of the piece. There we go. You guys should be able to see that curve pretty well. So we are done at that part. I don't really want to go any thinner because we do need to trim up the front side. So we'll trim down the rim a little bit more when we get to that part. And thankfully, I can get my tool rest around this a little bit more. So I'm just going to do another straight cut across this way. Just kind of clean that up a little bit better. Just a couple of push cuts here. And get rid of some of those tool marks before we finish up that rim. All right, so now we can work on the rest of the Ogee here. So what I need to do is take my calipers, which I set up. Before I started turning, I used my compass calipers to measure the outside part of my chuck that I'm going to be using, which is that I'm using jaws that are going to be that big, which for a piece this big in a recess, that's the size you need. But we will fix that up to where it looks like a nice foot and not so much a holding point of the piece. So first we want to get rid of this little nub right there. I got something pop up on my screen here. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit more here. Adjust that camera. All right. So I'm just going to get rid of that little nub. That's right there. Do some push cuts in. A little too fast. There we go. I've got a speed control on here that's really sensitive. Yeah.
I'm new enough to turning that the types of cuts, push cut, pull cut, shear cuts, all that are not anything that I quite understand yet. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, sure. Yeah. Right now, I got this little bump right here, as you can see, and I got the tool almost closed, the flute. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing the tool just. Let me grab a pencil here. I'm making the cut right here, just off the tip of the tool. And it's almost closed. And then what I do is I'm pushing towards the headstock. So this is a push cut towards the headstock, just to get rid of this little nub here. And I'll be doing some more push cuts, and I'll describe that quite a bit better.
Cool, thanks.
Come get it. Yep, no problem. So I got rid of that little nub. I just need to true this up a little bit more. It's still kind of running rough because of that part grain sapwood. So this is what I'm doing for a pull cut, or a draw cut, I like to call it. Same place on the tip. Tool almost, the flute almost closed, and then what you want to do is you want to, let me see if I can get a better view of this. I'm going to zoom out so you have a better idea of what it looks like here. Oh, wrong way. So you guys can see how I'm holding the tool. So I'm tucking the handle into my side, and I'm almost closing the flute, and I'm going to use my body just to lean back with the cut. I'm not using my arms. And I'm just easing it across. As you can see, I'm leaning back with the cut, nice and slow. Just using that edge of that bevel. I'm not contacting the wood with the bevel, just on the edge right here. And I stop when I start feeling uncomfortable. And then I would just readjust if I needed to. So I'm going to do one more of those. I shifted my feet just to see if that will make even a better cut. My left foot's forward, my right foot's behind me. And just like that. Just using your body right there. I hope I explained it a little better that time.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, good. So what I want to do now is I need to, let's get that shot. I need to put a mark right here for the size of my jaws that I already measured before they're in my drawer here. So I took, let's see if I can get this on camera. So I'm going to switch to overhead, and hopefully you guys can see it. There we go. So I almost closed the jaws, not quite, because when they make jaws, they're one piece, but then when they take that one piece and they cut them. So there's always going to be a saw curve to create a perfect circumference around the jaws. If you close them too much, it's not an exact circle anymore. So I've got this where I want it. And because this is going to be a recess, I measured the outside of the jaws with my points right there. And then I'm going to put that mark on my piece. And then I will create a recess right there for the jaws to sit in so we can reverse turn this. But I want to mark where the recess is now so I can finish up that Ogee curve. So for this, you want to only touch the wood on this end and just use this as a guide. So I'm going to start a little further in with the point and just work my way out. That way, this is all going to be waste wood. And if I started out here and work my way to the right mark, I'd be leaving lines all on my wood, and I want to avoid that. So I start closer towards the middle. See, and if you can see, let's see, there we go. You see that line developing. So I'm just going to keep working my way out. Oh, it's a little much right there. That's the line. That's pretty much where I want it. You don't want to touch this corner, or it's going to grab the wood. The wood's going to grab it and flip it over your shoulder, or hit you in the face or something. That's not a pleasant thing because these are sharp. And I'm going to grab me a pencil here just so you guys can see that a little bit better. Let's give it a little mark there. There we go. So that's the size of my recess. That's the size of my jaws. That'll be part of the foot. So what I want to do now is I want to start kind of taking the wood down below this area. Not very far though, but just enough to create that foot so the foot stands out proud. But I need to make another mark. So because there's going to be a slight concave right in this area here. And where that line is, that's where the piece is going to rest on the table. And this will be a slight concave towards the recess. But we'll fix that recess up, and I'll put some texturing and things in there, and it's going to look really nice. So let's do the overhead so you guys can see this. So I'm just going to do some some slight push cuts, not very deep, starting at the edge here towards the headstock. You don't want to go very deep because that recess needs wood to squeeze out against. If you got this area too shallow and you adjust the chuck outwards, it can crack the wood. So you just want to go just a little bit deep, not much. And then we will finish off making the Ogee. We just want to go a little bit deep here, just create go a little bit deeper than that. Another pull cut towards me, a draw cut. Using my body again just to smooth it out. I'm not going very deep. And one more. There we go. Probably like 3/30 seconds deep, but that's all you need. Just so that stands proud when it's sitting on the table. So what we want to do now is we just want to create a curve that matches this. We're going to bring this out, and we're going to create an adjoining curve. This one's going to come this way. This one's going to come out that way, and that's what creates an Ogee curve. Got to keep remembering to get rid of all this stuff there. So it's flat right here. And you know what? With my vibration, my lathe moved just a little bit, so I'm going to pull it back because it is getting out of camera shot a little bit. It does that. I don't have it bolted to the floor yet. There we go. And now I need to readjust my camera. There we go. That's a better shot. So this is flat right here. Kind of hard to tell. So we need to create just a little. I'm just going to create a more shallow cove right here a little bit. I'm not really happy with it. I can go a little bit deeper, just a couple of cuts. So I'm going to do the same kind of draw cut. I'm just going to start here, and I'm just going to lean back with the cut. And then I'm going to ease out of the cut. I don't want to take any more of that rim that I already took off. One more. There we go. We got a little tool mark there. Just kind of clean those up. All right, that's a better cut. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to blend these two curves together by starting over in this area and just kind of using this section of the tool. Just going to ease it into the adjoining curve here. And it's not quite deep enough right here. It's kind of I notice it's kind of a slight concave. You want this at least straight. You don't want it dipping inwards. So that's going to make it easier to blend these two curves into each other. Just gentle curves. And I'm leaning back with the cut. Let's see if I can do that side view here again so you guys can see what I'm doing. And just kind of join in the curve here. And I'm almost there, just needs a little bit on the top. There we go. And let me switch over to the overhead. You guys can see how that curve kind of showed up there. And I'm going to do a little bit of adjusting on my lathe because it did move on me. So I'm going to move my headstock over a little bit. There we go. Oh, a little too far. I guess we can get a better look at that curve right here. It's just the angle of the camera, but you guys can see that curve. It's nice and gentle. You just rub it with your fingers, just make sure there's no high spots. So it does dip down a little bit right here, so I do want to get rid of that. Touching the piece really tells you a lot about how it's progressing. So it's kind of still a little high right in this area, so I need to match that. So I'm just kind of blend this over. And that looks better. It probably feels better in my hand too. Yeah, that's much better. And I'm also looking to see if that foot is still proud. And it is. Well, I might take it just a tad deeper maybe. We'll see how it goes. I might just take my tool and just kind of make that stand out just a little bit more, a little deeper. And just do a pull cut right back out, even everything back up. The great thing about wood turning is you can always adjust it, but you just got to remember once the wood's off, you can't put it back on. That's better. That's a much better, prouder foot there. And we'll create a slight bead right in that area. So what I want to do now is I'm going to just start cutting out the center part here, right along in here, create that recess. So I'm going to grab me my smaller bowl gouge, my 1/2 inch, and I'm going to do some push cuts into this direction at first. And these are called push cuts for a reason. As you can see, the tool's going inward, away from you. Not a pull cut is, or pull cut is towards you. Push cut, of course, would be away from you. This is a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. And I'm just going to start right here in the middle here with the flute almost. I need to back up my tailstock or my elbow's going to jam right into it. That live center there. So the tool's about 45 degrees, and I'm just going to kind of ease it in and work my way out as I go. I'm going to go a little bit deeper each cut, almost like making a very shallow bowl. Lost the cut there. And if you watch, I will slow down my cut as I get closer to the center, because the wood is moving less per inch in the center than it is on the outside. And if you try to, and it makes the cut much smoother if you just take your time when you get towards the middle. There we go. You don't need to go super deep with these recesses. You'd be surprised of their holding power, just like having just like a 1/4 of an inch deep, which is about as deep as I'll ever go with a recess. If it was a small platter or something, I'd probably go 1/8 of an inch deep for the recess. So I'm running into that heartwood, as you can tell. It's kind of biting my, it's causing my tool to jump around just like it did earlier. It cuts a lot smoother out here until I get to that center part. So I'm just going to clean this up as best I can. There we go, I'm at the line now. Too big of a cut, caused my tool to jump around. Probably about as deep as I want to go for this area. So I'm going to grab you my parting tool, and I'm just going to go straight in right here to the depth I need. And where did I put my parting tool? There you are. So I'm just going to come in right here, right at that line. And go, and I'm just going to go back and forth a little bit here until I get to the depth I feel would be deep enough for the recess. One thing though, when you're making a recess, you got to make sure you don't go so deep that your jaws, the jaws don't fit in there right. I mean, it's just hard to do, but you don't want that to happen. Let me grab my chuck and I'll show you guys what I mean. You don't want to make the recess so deep. Oh, let's go. That it goes in that deep. That's just too much. There's a line on these jaws that I've got. This is a Vicmark chuck. And that pretty tells me right there how deep I need to go for a recess. That's about as deep as I need. Because the dovetail ends right there and then it turns flat. So there's no need to go any deeper than that because it's the dovetail portion that holds the piece on. You can go shallower though if the piece is smaller. But I'll probably go about that deep.
What size are those jaws?
These are 6-inch jaws. They're 6 inches across. Almost, but they're considered 6-inch jaws. They're almost. If I opened it up a little bit more, it would be considered 6 inches. They don't go like they don't measure jaws by like 5 3/4 or anything like that. It's always like 6 or 6.5 or 4.5, things like that. So I'm going to measure where how deep that dovetail goes. It goes in 1/4 of an inch. So I just want to see how deep I've gone so far. So I'm almost there. Just a couple more light cuts and it'll be deep enough. Take some of this waste away here.
Can you raise the camera a little bit?
Oh, how about if I do the side view? That way you guys, there we go. That's better. Forgot the switch, sorry. Guess got a better look at what I'm doing at this side camera here. So I need to dovetail this, so I'm just going to bring my parting tool in at an angle. And my parting tool is cut at a very slight angle. It allows me to get into that corner and make a flat area, nice sharp corner there. You don't want any round corners down inside your recess because the edge of your chuck jaws won't seat in there properly. And you gotta make sure you don't make too much of an angle for your dove or your dovetail jaws, which happens a lot. If you create too much of a dovetail, it won't seat right either. What's going to happen is the outside edge of the chuck is going to grab, but it won't seat on the bottom of the recess. It'll pull itself out if there's too much of an angle of your dovetail. All right, so that's good. And then I'm just going to clean the rest of this up. I'm just going to do some draw cuts here. The 1/2 inch. Clean this up. And get rid of that ridge there. Doing some pull draw cuts or pull cuts, as you can call them. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. Might have to grab me a small scraper just to clean those tool marks away. First, what I want to do is I'm going to bring my tool over to this part here, and I'm going to create a slight dovetail down inside here. Just like this, 45 degrees, just do a cut in. That way when the piece is sitting on the table, it's sitting on this outside ring. If you left it flat and the wood moves, it's going to rock a lot more. It can still rock when it's sitting on the ring, but not quite as much. So as you can tell by the shavings I'm getting there, just a very light cut. Doesn't need to be much of a dovetail, just enough to make sure it's not going to, this whole thing's not going to sit on the floor or on the flat. Because if it does start to bow and it's flat, it can create a convex and it's really going to start rocking. So I'm going to check for tool marks at this point. I'm not going to go through all the sanding stages unless you guys want me to. Some people find it boring. I like sanding, but okay, so there is a little bit of a tool mark there, so I want to get rid of that. There's like a depression right there. And I also want to grab a very small spindle gouge, and I'm just going to kind of curve this over. And I'm going to curve this portion over a little bit. Just a little, not much. I do have like a depression here, so I'm just going to try to clean that out of there. Yeah, I'm going to check it. There is still a dark line right there. I might have to bring my parting tool in and finish that up. So that's pretty clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring me grab me a scraper. Now this scraper is a little different. It's got almost like a skew shape on the top. It curves away from center. Then it's got a very slight curve on the top right here, away from it. And it's also got a bevel here that I sharpened. This is like for boxes also, but I use it for this type of thing so I can get right in there and just kind of clean this up. I need to raise my tool rest a little bit because the handle has to be higher than center. So when you bring the handle up, the blade needs to be on center, and that's a little too much. You don't need a whole lot, but just enough, because if you have it straight or up, you can't get a catch. So we're just going to bring it across here and clean that up. Yeah, just put that right there in the corner here. Just do a couple of back and forth cuts here. Get rid of some of those tool marks. Makes sanding easier if you're going to go that far. There we go. Let's see how that works out. All right, so it's got a little bit of tear out still in there, but I'm not going to worry about power sanding. We get that out because it's not very deep at all. But I do want to show you guys how I take a spindle gouge and kind of curve this over. So I'm going to grab me a small spindle gouge. Where are you? It's in my drawer here. There you are. This is just a small detail spindle gouge. Let's do the overhead here if you guys can see. Uh-oh. Looks like my picture froze. All right. My camera turned off, my overhead one. Give me 1 second. I'm not sure why it did that. Huh. Oh, I see. The power thing came unplugged. So I need to restart it. Let's see if there we go. Right back to where we belong. So I'm just gonna kind of just curve these spots right over using this tool right here. I'm gonna zoom in on that so you guys can see it a little better. What I'm gonna do, you guys can see that tool better. Just a long, very long bevel, and then I cut the bevel off a little bit more right here. And I'm just gonna curve this over. Just gonna start the bevel open and just kind of twist it and make that curve into it, almost like making a bead. Kind of a slight bead is what we're making here. Just to give it a little better look. Just like cuts, just to join this in. And we can do the same thing on this part so it doesn't look so sharp of an edge there, kind of soften it up. There we go. So I'm just going to grab me a couple of fun tools here. A couple of texturing tools real quick. So make the bottom a little more interesting. So I've got a small spiral tool here, and I've got a knurling tool right here. So I'm going to slide some of these tools out of the way. And I'm going to grab my smaller knurling tool because that is a little more narrow than I thought. Need to turn the lathe down for this. And I'm just going to use my knurling tool to create a very nice kind of design into the piece. I'm trying to get that shake out of it. Come on. There we go. And we're just going to push this in.
Which cameras?
Oh, sorry. There we go. Let me zoom this one in a little bit. There we go. Guess we can get a good look at that. And this is what this does. It doesn't cut the wood. It leaves an impression in the wood. And then you can slide it over a little bit, kind of change the design a little bit. And the thing about this tool, because it leaves an impression, leaving it a little longer than you think you should. I've learned that. Let's have a look, see what we got. So we got a nice little design right there. And now I'm going to get my spiraling tool. I'm going to make some spirals down the center here. Let me adjust the camera over. There we go. So I'm just going to bring this, I'm just going to bring it across just like this, and I'm going to change angles, and it'll change the kind of designs we get across there. So I'm just going to start in the middle and just make it almost like a little rosette in the center. Then I'm going to bring the tool out at a different angle. And draw it across. Then I'm going to tilt it a little bit more on a bigger angle. Now, I would do this after I did like a 180 sanding, but because we're not doing any sanding today, I still wanted to show you guys what this does. So you can see those spirals. And to highlight those, you want to grab yourself a point tool, like this one here, or just a pyramid tool. This one I've got cut really sharp angles. It makes cutting I use this just for making grooves to highlight these type of textures, and it helps highlight them. Makes them stand out just a little bit more. And I need to stop the lathe real quick and make sure I don't cut in the wrong spot. So I need to cut there and right there. Okay. And this little guy out here too. And you'll see once I stop the lathe how those screws really help those texturing pop out. It highlights them a little bit more than they would if you just left them plain. It's always fun just to do that on the bottom, just to get for people to turn it over. Because people are curious. They do want to turn these things over and have a look, see what the bottom looks like. And it's nice to have some fun details on the bottom.